And I'm going to go, okay, all the days like this on it'll be good. So on our first item for the work session, we're going to hear from Darren with School Perceptions, and he's going to give us about 30 minutes to go over a presentation on the results of our 3 surveys. Thanks, Darren.
That's like it. All right, we're going to show up my PowerPoint. We'll walk through a combined slideshow that. Off with the big board. That's which is just right. I'm just not showing for that. That's all. So before we get started, I kind of want to just give an overview of what you're going to see. We're going to go through the student report, the staff report, and the parent report. And there's some overarching themes that are quite exciting for me to put together on your behalf. Year 2 in this process is where it gets really exciting for us as a company to serve you, because you start to see trends and you start to see improvements. Sometimes you'll see regression, and there's a number of reasons that you have regression. Some it could be just timing, budgetary circumstances, could be based on decision making, or you ask more of one group, which makes them less happy, but you're pushing for another that should like improve student achievement, which is hard work. All that being said, the good news in your report is most of your data is incredibly stable. There's been some significant growth in an area that's the hardest to move the needle. In fact, I have districts trying to improve student behavior that are pulling in outside resources and professional development agencies just to improve student behaviors. And the trend across all 3 reports is that all 3 groups, staff, student, parents, are reporting the student behavior is getting better. The student behavior is impact learning for kids, impacts parents because they want their kids to feel safe, and then impacts instruction because teachers want to teach, not manage personalities and manage behaviors. So that being said, I would say this report in summary is largely celebratory because we need the hardest area to move in that student behavior in all 3 reports through the eyes of the survey paper. Okay. That being said, we're going to start with the students. Yeah, for anyone listening online or in the audience, the background part, and then each of the 3 PowerPoints will show you who took the survey and the ways we could break out eager study different groups that did respond to the survey, and I'll give a summary and analysis. And there'll be a lot of numbers, I'll warn you, because we're going to show you last year's summary, this year's numbers, calculated percentage change, and then show you where that leaves you on a national percentile basis compared to other districts in our survey. Okay. So that being said, anyone that's new to us, we've been doing this for 24 years. We've done 3.3 million of these staff student parent surveys now in all 50 states and 5 more countries, and we've helped over 1,400 districts for strategic planning or referendum planning, like the bond survey that we did on behalf of the district a few months ago. So let's talk about the student survey, which this is the first time in my 4 years of the company I can say I'm giving a student report where not one single item regressed. Every measure by which we ask the students how things are going either stayed the same or it improved. Which I serve districts as small as 79 children, 500 children, all the way up to like district as big as yours in Green Bay. And it is very, very hard for just your size to accomplish what you're going to see in all 3 of these reports in some of these places. But to not have one single item regress when we checked in with kids about what's going, I've never done it. I've never gave a presentation where nothing regressed. So let's show you more specifically how things move. So here's the way we can disaggregate the data by site, and I showed Andy in his cabinet how to do that. We have better reports than ever as far as how to look at the results site by site. We can look at the student data by specific grade. We can break it down by gender if we're so inclined. We can break it out by race if you need that kind of data. And so I'll remind you, this is the rating scale we use. The part that's missing here is a 3. Remind you, the reason we do that is because we're not going to give 3 points to somebody who says, I'm not sure. We're going to give them 0 points if they say, I'm not sure, don't know. We want to measure leanings, through the surveys, so you have conclusive data to the good or to the negative how things are going. This is something I've shown this board. I'm going to show you your summary in that slide on how the overarching areas are doing, but I wanted to show you before is that which questions lead to those indexes. Kids have 4 indexes. How connected they feel to school, how their learning is going, the environment of the school, and their overall school experience. And so I put together these 2 slides to show you roughly 8 to 10 questions to each of those index areas. And then I'm going to show you your first slide results. So with those 4 summary areas, you see this year's current score. The previous score is last year at this time, at the time of the survey being taken. Percentage change. Now that is averaging all of those 8 to 9 questions in each index together. And what happened to them? Well, they all grew. All 4 indexes grew, meaning, as I already kind of a spoiler alert, all of the questions grew or stayed the same. So this is phenomenal for a survey with 5,000 students today. And this is really good stuff. We have these, you then have kind of comparison percentile in yellow. I'm going to do a little reminder about percentile ranks here. That compares you to other districts that have taken the same question. And so 45th percentile, just to illustrate, means you're right in the average range. If you're the best district around, you get the 99 percentile. And it's a question that is really, really worrisome. You get to be first percentile. Within bands, if you're 75th or above, we would consider that elite. 25th or below, we'd say worth further study, targeted improvement. That makes sense? So 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, kind of upper average, lower average, 75 and above, straight, 25th or below area for bonus. So just to give you some context though, not every story can be told in percentile rank. So I'm going to show you an example here before I get into your data this year. Look at these 2 questions. I'm satisfied with our school's efforts to address bullying, and my child feels safe at school. 2 parent questions. I haven't shown you other data. Based on percentile rank, we might say, well, we gotta work at that my child feels safe at school question because it didn't improve as much and it's at the 24th percentile. But we can't just look at those 2 scores because look at the other data. 90% of the parents said that they feel their child feels safe at school. If you're above a 4, compared to 67% are happy with the bullying efforts, and you're 3.36. So I'm going to show you 5 scores this year across each question. Don't just focus on percentile comparison percentile. Don't just focus on percentage change. You got to look at the others too. And why would you say, well, how can you get the 24th percentile? It's your 90% agreement. That's because all schools are chasing improvement. They're putting in cameras. They're making sure they have secure entries. Some on SROs, school resource officers. So school safety is a nationwide movement. Getting everyone to deal with the bullies the same way as a satisfactory measure in the eyes of parents, tougher than saying you have to check out the office before I'm going to let you go down to your child's class. Very, very different challenge. Right? Because you're dealing with staff members all trying to deal with misbehaving children in the classrooms in a similar manner. Oh, by the way, your district it costs 23.7. Okay? Does that make sense? So if that makes sense to you, how to report that? All 3 presentations, try to get the half hour mark. I tried to contact this. So let's look at question by question. I can relate to what I'm learning. So these are all sorted, by the way, by percent change. So highest percent change to lowest percent change. Now notice, these aren't seismic changes. So we as a company get really excited when there's a percent change of 3 or more. I would tell you in a district your size, I'm going to drop that to 2% or more. Because that means all 5,000 kids move in the right direction together. Okay? District, as I said, North Dakota, 79 kids. You got 2 kids change their opinion, and you get 3% change. Very different challenge for your district. So let's go through the list. I need help. I can talk to my teachers outside class. Nice growth. Not quite the percentile range you'd like to see, but move in the right direction. My teachers explaining things in a way that I get. Teachers making their classes fun and interesting. All grew by more than 2%. Teachers calling me in class. Here's a percentile rank that would probably worth further study. If you have shown the district figures, I'll drill down and see where is this most problematic at sites. You're not just chasing this across all 23 sites, but the one which really particularly one bigger problem than others. I try my best at school through the eyes of the kids. I got it from last year, and I can go online and use the device when I need it. Doesn't have comparison scores this year because we changed the wording. We added not including my cell phone. But I'll tell you, compared to last year, we had changed the wording, changed by 9%. So now the kids, they're not measuring whether they can check their phone. So I really have the Chromebook for technological school. I need to have 9% growth across the size. 100. Let's talk about life at school. Most kids at school follow the rules. 5% growth. That's good. 39% now. Love to see that. Feel safe answering questions in class, even when I'm not sure of the right answer. That shows my courage now. I can be myself, I can take a risk. No one's going to tease me. 3.5%. Students treat kids. I always respect the interpersonal things. 3.4%. Our bully, Uncle Hopkins, okay, so now I have a bad experience. Can I approach someone that's no, they're going to do something about it? Yes, 3.4% growth. I can be myself at school. 66th percentile, and we're at 3.3%. Then my teachers care about me. Nice growth there. Students break a rule at school. At school, they're treated fairly. That is, here's the example. Here's the example. I'll do that show. I'll look that up for you. I've got to say, school, I think that's a budget. That's right. That's for this. Yes. You don't have that in our database. And you don't have that in our database. So that shows how it changed the last year. We said, we wanted to know at school. General question asked is in charter school, they're treated fairly. We added at schools, they're really getting at school. I like to learn new things. Through my 1.8%, and teachers treat me with respect. Through my 1.4%. So again, nothing in the double digits. I couldn't imagine that this your size would be able to do that. But just something significant for the way I have it. What I like is always tonal questions about kids following the rules, feeling safe, being themselves, the way that all that data. And then finally, people around me, well, if they're feeling comfortable and they're excited about what they're learning, I talk to people outside of school about what I'm learning. I have a big problem at school. There's an adult I can talk to about it. I go there. My working groups, my classmates, 70-30% off, getting in that unique range. Really excited. My parents and guardians help me to school as much as they can if I ask. 50% off. I have friends who help me when I need help. So I tell other people when I can. And I have friends that sit with that much for me help with it. That's very stable data from last year and all very acceptable now ranks. Know that when we talk about your simple, by the way, we don't have a lot of districts in the United States that reach size. 80% of districts are 2,000 or less. So it is really rare to have a district your size. So what we did is we grabbed all the biggest districts we have on our server, compared to the only handful that are in the teens of thousands. Okay, so it's not necessarily apples to apples, and they're all food family, but they're not all apples to apples. Okay, so we did check in with the kids and what makes learning hard for you. 4th through 8th graders. Scrap 8 years of those kids. That's why I was reading with the good news. Because this is an underlying worry when I get to school every day and all the to stand in the way of learning all the behaviors of other children. So the fact that your district made that area focus and that was carried forward by your building administration to have this kind of results, can't say enough. That's the number one request we get as a company. Can you turn this on and help us with behavior? Can you get a good turn it? Really. 9 to 12 graders, too much stress is number one. Or number two, even though they're older and more mature, they want kids to behave too so they can focus on something. Ask them about homework. Is it more than just busy work? Grew by 1.3%. Has it the 48th percentile? Love that. Want to be more than just rote activities. We want to be meaningful. And overall satisfaction, 3.7% growth on the speed survey compared to last year when we say most days I like my school. So to summarize, I summarize your data this year 3 other ways. 5 highest scoring items. And I was paused. So close in. Then the 5 lowest scoring. All of that median 3 or above that we were like to see. Then percentage change. 5 that changed the most on a percentile basis. We had to retitle this slide. We said, you know, sometimes take the 5 items that declined the most. We didn't have it. So we had to say 5 items with the least improvement. And finally, 5 items with the greatest percentile rank, for double digit. And items with the lowest percentile rank when compared to other districts. And again, and use 25th percentile as just kind of our HR score where we say we scratch our chin, try to study that further and understand why it kids feel that way. We also did the activity that we did in last year's data review in the presentation this year. We have the questions that matter most where we ask the kids if they like their school. And I broke it up by 4 through 8 and 9 through 12. 4 through 8th graders, they want to feel safe. They want the bullies to be dealt with. They want to feel safe answering questions. Well, you saw your scores on that. So not only did you surge in some areas, but you made improvement in areas that matter most to kids. There are your scores. And if you're wondering why that 0 to 10 score grew by 3.7%, it's right there in those top 5. Because they matter the most. They impact that posing question the most. And you think bigger kids, high school kids, their list be different? It's not that different. They want to feel safe. They want the bullies to be dealt with too. They just want to use their device. And believe it or not, they want their parents to be engaged in learning and to be available if they need help. And there's your data on those areas. And here I included that. I can go online and use the device, even though it's new wording, I put the data in there. Up to a 4.23, which is 9.4% better than last year once we clarified what we mean by educational device. Okay? Any parents want the student data? All right, let's talk about parent data. There was an 11% participation rate, which is down by several hundreds. We just close around 2,000 last year. I think there's some survey fatigue based on just having asked them about the referendum and feedback on the facilities. But what I tell you, there's still 2 critical benchmarks that we hit. We find the data is incredibly reliable. We have 10% or more surveys. Hands and pairs with 500 or more surveys, that's the double win. Well, you got triple the 500 we like to see, and you're over 10%. So I tell you, I think this data is still an indicator of how people are feeling and can be used for planning. But there are some factors that may have influenced some of your data points, and we'll get into that. I can drill down by where they live, by the municipality. If you ask me to, I've already provided this to administration that we can look at the data by sites. You can look at it by grade levels. They have that at their fingertips as well, but you can just scan across and see if there's certain grade levels. This means they're surging or declining. We can look at by special services that are provided for children and get the endowment plan, ELL plan, 504 plan, a medical condition, etc. Study the results by race. The opening question, we said, hey, what are the areas that you think are most important for the future of the district? Why they're so tight? So you say to them, pick 4. You can have to look at your work. You can't. It's not an endless list of things we can pursue for prioritization. What is most important? Well, your parents said life skills, functional skills, career and technical education. And one that is on the rise is recruit and retain high quality staff. My first couple of years on the job, we didn't see that in the top 4 or 5 very often, but it's down full strength. As you see less kids going into the educational field, it's becoming all the more critical to recruit and retain the top staff that you do have. The message is getting home to parents. They know. Any of these other areas, you go to page 2 is the math. Don't misunderstand. I'll remind you, it doesn't mean math's not important to them. It means that they're likely very satisfied with the math that's being provided. And if they had to choose about you advancing an area, budgeting new dollars towards an area to grow and further, this actually should be the endorsement of your math programming. So because foreign language, things of that nature. They want you to focus in top 4 for the future to really focus on those. And I typically advise is just focus on the top 4 like we asked them to. It was pretty clean cut on it. All right, let's talk about their indexes. So parents have an index on how informed they feel, how included they feel, and you guys and the child. The educational excellence the child is experiencing, the atmosphere of school, the functions that feed that, and their overall experience with how they see their child being accepted, respected, and supported. Your scores were largely very, very stable compared to last year, and the start of presentation is going to show you where there wasn't that stability. See the scores, see the percentage change, just one area moved, and you'll see why. And percent outranks, again, not where I would like to report from. I would say the student report is more where I'd love to see, but again, it's year 2. And change the slope. This is not unusual for one report to grow, another one to stand a little bit more pat because it's very hard to chase improvements across all 3 populations, staff, parents, and students all at the same time. I shared with Andy on the district in northern Wisconsin, about 2,000 kids were finally in year 4, all 3 reports grew together for the first time because there's always a regression in one area as you chase improvements in another. So let's talk about the results on the first section where we talk about leadership and communication. These are the 3 lowest scoring items on the parent survey. District administration doing what it takes makes our district successful, regress by 3.6%. District heading in the right direction, regress by 5.3%, and the school board is doing what it takes to make our district successful, regress by 6%. Get that surprise out of the way. It's not the kind of surprise you wanted. But then the rest of the report, pretty stable. Communication, very similar to last year, 2/100ths different. Communication by school, identical score to last year. So I see this kind of stability, even though a few hundred less took it. It tells me that the data can hold up, and largely you can count on the scores in most of these items for your planning. Communication, they want to continue with emails, automated phone calls, infinite campus, and then 4 meetings with teachers and administrators at a personal time. So let's talk about the questions. And these are largely focused on how they feel about their school experience. So I talked about all 3 surveys measuring exciting things and behaviors. Right out of the gate here, satisfied with our school's efforts to address bullying. 3.4% growth. Can't stress to you how hard that is to do when you survey thousands of parents across the system. I say the 33% now. Also, I know how to support my child's learning. Grew modestly, but the right direction. Overall, my child is able to handle the emotional challenge at school and be updated on how my child is doing. Not quite the percent change that you saw in the student survey, but still moving in the right direction. My child feels safe at school, very similar to last year. Feeling welcome in my child's school. Good quality culture in our school. The school having high expectations for my child. All very, very similar to last year. My child breaks his rule of school, they treat it fairly. 1/100 victims. School teaching of materials, so you're talking about identities, cultural, racial backgrounds. 1/100 victims. School facilities clean and well kept. Very similar to last year. In most days, my child is going to school. Very similar to last year as well. School providing opportunities for parental involvement. Similar, and opportunities to provide feedback to school and teachers, similar, but at 80% up. School staff treat my child with dignity and respect. My child makes stuff that they use. Communication, timely, and transparent. It's one staff member of contacting or an idea, concern, and satisfied with my child's learning. So you notice there, nothing, more than a 1.3% regression of any of the items you cast the three introductory questions. You ask them about four, much too little, 67% just right. Well, curricular involvement, 74% of your parents reporting that a child is involved in something, which I love. Well, a lot of, I got some districts now in the low 60s that are trying to grow their student engagement because some kids don't come to school to learn, they come to school to participate in learning the byproduct and being the next level that is city. It's important to have those activities beyond the learning that we do always check in on the internet access to make sure that you can find sending home e-learning activities. The overall satisfaction regressed by 2.3%, and I'll show you at the end what caused that to be 2.3%. So if you have your data, 5 highest scoring items on our Likert grading scale: facilities, staff treatment of children, safety, food involved and how to support my child's learning. 5 lowest, all above 3. Percentage change. These 5 grew the most. These are the 5 and 3. Finally, comparison percentile. The 5 highest when compared to uh, districts in our comparison pool. And then 5 that are lowest in the tier districts that we look at. Again, it's a 2-year look back by it. So every time we pull the data, it's based off July 1st of 2 years ago. We don't want to do 5-year-old data. We want to. It's the whole idea of rising highs raise all boats. So as other districts are chasing improvements, as you are, you're competing against a bar that's being raised by other districts trying to get better too. That's why when I see some of the scores that you can student report, it's not very exciting because it's a target area card of the figures. What questions matter the most to the your parents? Talked about that last summer, but I don't expect you to remember all of this. Safety is number 1. Board, high expectations for learning, and children getting up right behind it. And then culture, school culture, district administration, and school facilities. That's your top 7 items to be asked of parents. So when we talk about that 0 to 10, when I recommend the district to a friend or family member, negative 2.3%. This largely have resulted in these questions because they can be on that day for the whole. So as I show you your scores there, the questions that we show you at the beginning of the survey kind of reflect why that. I do just have to say to you as a board, having the parent survey right after the father survey, and knowing that basically 50-50 split on where things are going to go in your facility planning. And there's some people that were really on board and some people that are really weren't on board. I don't think that helped your board and district administration, district direction, sports. And I think that people taking the survey evaluating that because when they really got down to their school, you saw how stable the data was. It didn't mean too high or too low, other than the behavior score top. I'm realizing that's what I surmise because how else could all that be different? One change last year, this year, what we did a community-wide survey asking some tough questions about our home. Silly fun. Let's check in with staff. 966 staff members took the survey. Slightly fine there too. But again, I would also say you surveyed the staff of all the facilities and those kind of things too. This all kind of happened in pretty close succession. Again, break the staff data by site. You can break it out by position category. You can also break it out by years experience. I think we're just asking that if pensions change as as insurance packages change. So just with cut lines, what you're getting with the old retirement package, your part of the new retirement language. Want to make sure that the young kids are feeling good about the district they're on just as much as the veterans. And I'll show you the indexes for staff. We have academic questions. We have questions about how engaged they feel. We have questions about how supported they feel. The student experience could be as the staff and their own staff experience. You look at the nice progression within the staff list. All 5 indexes grew, which is really exciting as well. It's not often I can say that. Again, I'm not talking about all districts that I do this for, no matter the size. I don't often, I'll say it again, I've never had a student report, didn't have a question or address. And it's very rare to have all 5 indexes move up together. We talk about all those questions that these indexes moving up together like good stuff. So let's talk about this report. The workday questions, the district seeks input from a broad group of staff members, 5.4% growth. So still not quite the percentile rank that I know you're ultimately wanting to get to, but that's big change for a question that's really, really, really tough to satisfy all respondents and that feeling like that they have input on the system, the district. Okay? Our staff handling student discipline in a consistent manner. 5% change, soared up to 66% now. Policies and practices being effective with behavior, nearly 5% growth, up to the 37% now. Feeling supported by my supervisor or administrator when I make a decision, 1.8% growth. And then questions with that are very similar to last year, looking forward to going to work, feeling comfortable sharing input and concerns with the administration, getting information in a timely and effective manner, all very similar to last year. Our staff doing a good job educating our students. A modest regression by 2/100ths, but at 75th percentile, which is a unique company. And I want to point out to the board, there are some districts where recently, within the last month, I've recorded to, and that was their lowest question. I often get asked by work, well, of course, everybody feels like they're doing a great job. Well, not, oh no. And honestly, when I ask really candidly to say, am I or are my peers doing a great job for the kids? I've had some down in the single digits and teams where they're bringing in experts to say, we got to get better at professional practices because we're not doing a good job for the kids. So for a system your size, to get 75th percentile, 97% agreement. That's probably one of the proudest data points on all these surveys. The former principals for Fed money. Okay. The amount of work I'm asked to do, reasonable, manageable, regressed a bit, and has the 8% down. And workflows on the minds of a lot of you because I don't know a district that I've worked with these past 2 years that is cutting positions and asking more than folks. Florida was down to by also Christian was a parent. Talk to people. Environment questions. Last year, I received useful feedback to help improve my work. This is an administrative question. Are they getting meaningful feedback from their district administration, the building administration, that helps them get better at their job? They want that. And it grew by 2.3%. They want to feel safe at work, just like the kids, just like the parents. They want training to work with students from different backgrounds. Can that improve? That's also a question that I'm getting asked on almost every project. Can you turn us to someone who can help us with getting better at working with the diverse populations? Because our student populations are more diverse than ever. Multiple languages, multiple different disabilities. It's kids come to school with various backgrounds. Parents, have they read with them at all? Or if they read with them since the child was born? I mean, it's really more challenging now. The gap of readiness when they come into school is never very wide. I have opportunities for training and professional development to improve my work. We had a growth there, nice percentile rank. The training you're providing at the district. Love to see that. Because staff are hard to please, I'll be honest with you. Because everybody wants something different from those staff development days and services. And so that's commendable percentile rank, particularly for a system that's large as yours. I don't envy the task of trying to have training because it's terrible on states. District administration doing what it takes to make our district successful, slightly up from last year. I recognize Wayne did a good job, similar to last year. 100 was good. All students in our school are respected for their values and beliefs. Top 33%, 67th percentile. District heading in the right direction, regressed a bit. And then the school board doing what it takes to make our district successful, regressed by 3/100ths. And finally, how supportive do they feel? District's pay practices are fair. 6% growth, and it has in the top 21%. Good stuff. Social emotional needs of all students. Well, let me go back to that one. Parents want you to attract and retain staff to the best of your ability, and your staff are saying you're paying me a fair wage. That interfaces very nicely with what your parents are prioritizing. Social emotional needs of all students being met. 4% change. This is a top 5 priority question of staff and parents in systems that I work with too. And for a system you're big to grow that social emotional support, really, really impressive. School having a process to ensure every student has a connection with at least one adult. Love to see that. A lot of districts targeting that connection piece, mentor, mentee, homeroom, some kind of system for kids to feel the connection beyond that you're reporting to a classroom. And I'll raise that off to the next classroom. Staff input being valued. Obviously, a survey like this helps, but there's so much more that needs to happen for them to feel like their input matters. And that's clearly happening. Access to the technology support they need. You were strong last year, you moved up more. Our school supports students from diverse backgrounds, very similar to last year. Our parents and community support the district, very similar to last year. We'll watch this question very closely next year because the referendum will really affect how the staff see this question. I see it every project come on, or they've done a referendum, we'll come in back staff survey. There's some reason that we're going to pass staff having to get version. And how to be work relationship with my coworkers, top 20%. Most identified classes. All students at our school are given equal opportunities to learn and experience success. And the technology I need to do my job well, that materials to slides, I need to do my job well. Facility planning, we did ask the staff beyond the referendum questions, one of the things were on my mind as far as facility needs. And they said public walking tracks, swimming pool, gym space at the top. Overall satisfaction, almost identical to last year. 46% up. Whether makes me happy about this report is nothing how low the 0, 1, and 2 rating scales are in each staff. Because anonymously in the safety of their work environment, and you have very few people there, but it's really top. I think 52% to 89%. Top 5 by raw score. Bottom 5. Percentage change. Lots to celebrate. Haters, pay practices, communities, and kids. Getting it done. Really getting it. And some regression, but I look at the contrast here. 6, 5, 5, 4, 4 regressions. You wouldn't even count the zeros, 0.6s, and the 1.1s. That's minuscule. Surveyed many employees here. Maybe we're talking about workload. How's it feeling that percentile rank? Really things here. You have 3 in that cut score where we say that is like top notch, rare area. Okay. And then, so the lowest percentile rank is. And finally, what questions matter the most to employees? I remind you, they want confidence in the district, and that comes from district administration, fair pay, parents, community supporting the district, and our school board. Secondly, safety, professional development, They want good training kids from the kids aren't instead. They want to be recognized when they do a good job and they want to be full administrator. Carry your scores. One of them. Or we first criticize the his Karen budget of this type budget, so I can't say enough how that is really suffice. But staff are feeling good about behaviors and it's moving in the right direction. So all three reports is staff are reporting safe behaviors getting out better than ever. Parents are saying that, and the kids on the front line are using it on those behaviors and it's so that's my report for you this year. There's only was half an hour, so I don't know. So that's it. Sometimes they want to get some clarity any questions. Don't feel on the roll.
I was going to say, the students in the data compared to parent data. Do you ever see that? If students are feeling better about things, like Liv's getting better, but yet the parents don't see if this doesn't reflect. Is there usually a lag there?
The district I decided where a couple years before the reports all at the same level. It takes a little time for that good news to get back home, and I do think it's easier at the end of the day to share that news. All the things you have, and I think that's human nature. I want to urge you, look at your celebrations here, not just focus on things that are bothering you. So, the same thing with that. It takes a while for the behaviors being dealt with. What's exciting to me is in the front line, the kids and staff, and you see it. So the fact that that's the question of the parent survey jumped by 3,000%. It tells me some words already at home.
Yeah, so what I see is, you got to vote on budget priorities, spent cuts. I've got stuff telling you, how to budget. And I know at a company, you do a survey after budget cuts, it doesn't add up.
Top on staff, top on parents.
Right. Because the administration will take the hit, and in this case, the board will take the hit, but if we did do that, we'd be at a deficit. Again,
District that had an unsettled contract and they surveyed during that unsettled contract time and it came back later and said, oh, you should be settled because I don't think they're settled. We just wonder how much that moved the needle of our staff. Putting over anything else.
because I think one of the things that we're really focused on is student outcomes. I mean, we should all agree. And maybe communications with parents. Do you think we need to do something there?
We never communicated about it. And as you go over the facility planning, all those kinds of things, that's more communication. And I do think that the fact that you'll never make anybody happy as you're proposing facility planning as far as you tested. I can't help but stress yet think that those first questions before district direction, district administration are tangled into the mindset of not everyone's gonna love this plan. You saw the data. It's too close to call. So but sounds stable. Was once we got the almost 3 questions you sure. So by the way, I did talk to the administration when we gave up kind of a preview to Avenue. And I said I would love it if this district would be willing to present as a school board for that. Because as I said, in almost every district I work with is all the same behaviors. So in a district your size, in 1 year, you move the needle on all those behavior measures. Why not share your story? All was done by the district leaders that are on the front line, working with principals and asking more about building level leadership. I mean, district of 700 kids would love to hear how district your size can implement that and borrow some ideas. That's why we go to MSD, right? It's to learn from others, get better, and be on the actual story to help. So no pressure. We just when we see model districts doing really exciting things, you want to tell your story to have across the state. They're all districts live, so. Yeah, that's this guy.
Darren, I like that you look for connections between the surveys. What stood out is, but I'm looking at some of disconnections, and maybe we just have to tell our story better. We all talk about that in retreat more, and your advice is what you see. So, like you said, what the parents want is to pay, train, and retain teachers, and teachers feel like we're doing that. For the students to feel the climate in the school increasing across the board, especially in bullying, is huge. It's going to focus forward. I know. The big one I see is one of our top achieving ones, and almost I think it ranked number 2 was I can be myself at school.
Well, thank you.
Right. So we scored incredibly high in that. So students feel ability to be themselves at school, and they're not getting bullied. Well, like I said, they're not getting bullied. We're moving in the right direction. We're focusing on that. Then we get back to the other survey, and the one thing they want us to do is they say, but my student is accepted and that receives a lower score. So there's some disconnect there in what we're seeing. So you were just saying a little bit, like sometimes what's happening in school goes school, teachers, parents. Have you seen this in other districts? You know what they're doing?
Almost every time. I think there's a number of things you could do. I think the best thing you could do is report out these findings right back to the parents and share a synopsis of what you learned. Put that in the newsletter. I don't know if you know about it in the paper, but if you put in the paper that the good news that all 3 survey reports show improved reporting from all 3 groups on student behavior. Um, you know, media matters and a good responsible report on the truth. And that is where we've got measures that show real, all 3 populations that you're serving. It's a great story to tell. I'll offer you this, Andy and I, you joke about presenting at the board commission. I want nothing more than to see you flourish. You want me to do another video recording sharing these findings with parents? They watch and report that back to the parents. That's something I could do. I've got executive summaries that you could put on the website. You could splash out via email. Maybe the county gets together and showcases areas of growth and share with them and areas that we're going to target for improvement. So it's not you're just shaping the positive stuff and sharing that out, saying, and we heard you. And we're going to do something about these too. How we have good communication to all the parents is this is what we're proud of. The work's not done. Next year we're going to focus on these things because your social emotional questions resonated through the survey reports as well. Frontline with the kids, being yourself, coaching an adult when you need it. I mean, even when they're not feeling good about themselves, they've got adults they can go to when they're not feeling like they have the support they need. So with learning and falling, it's just really, really good stuff. Yeah, so I think you have to communicate it through multiple means in order for it to get to everybody.
And if I remember, it was email. What was the other one the parents preferred?
All parents, your parents want the email or text. When they say phone and text, they're talking about the weather decisions in 3 or 4 in the morning. Manny loves it. And I'll tell you, Infinite Campus was the 3rd choice, something that parent portal with you just going to. So I would say an email summarizing the findings, a newsletter summarizing the findings, something like that. It's like the ability to do another communication. You tell them this is what we're proud of this year and this is what we're working on next year. I mean, I think that's a really healthy message to show that we're continuous improvement, trying to get better as we serve staff, students, and parents. Maybe look for joint ventures. I don't know if you do a regular mailing. I guess I've never really talked to Andy since. Now that you do get that data out in there and help that because it's not easy work. Just try to get staff to feel like behaviors are really getting better. I thought that sometimes I see a kid say it and the staff and parents are behind. The kid parents are right there with the kids. Excuse me, your staff are right there with the kids. And there was a bit of parental lag, but the bullying question did go by 3%. And that's the powerhouse question in the parent surveys on behavior. Yeah.
I have another question for you. I noticed on 4 through 8, 9 through 12, distracting student behaviors is way up there.
That's where we ask the kids what makes learning hard for you.
Right.
And that's not necessarily saying that it's happening. Saying when you struggle to learn, what's the cause?
Mm-hmm.
They're saying because teachers have to stop teaching and deal with the amount of,
So not necessarily a problem, it's just
you know,
what inhibits
yeah.
the learning environment is distractions.
Yeah, and honestly, even if you scored at the top 10%, I've had districts where the behavior scores for you guys that gets the stat are unique, like 90% or above. It's still impressed. If learning's hard for you, why? Distracted behavior.
And have you ever, in terms of technology in the classroom on a grade level basis, have you done any questioning along that? Was it helpful or?
Yeah.
Because you hear a lot of trends, like the LA County School District, which is largest in the U.S., has started to remove electronics from the classroom.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, what your
It's funny you say that. I don't talk about other districts' data, but I'll play with them this day. I'm giving a presentation in about 15 minutes here up in your conference room. Thank you, by the way. And we already unhacked their data. Their tech score went down. And I thought for sure it was a cell phone policy in high school. It wasn't. They pulled back how much Chromebook learning they're doing at the elementary. And the kids are like, you can't wear a laptop and they can learn in a more traditional manner. And they're about to drop by like 20% amongst elementary kids. High schoolers are fine, went up by 2%. Because honestly, they don't want their friends in the homes the whole class too, because all it does is distract the teacher. That's another behavior to manage, is inappropriate time usage. So we can drill down on absolutely. Any of those factors at the beginning when I showed you my site, my grade level, my position, sure, I always say, we're just getting started, just like last year you came back and you need homework assignments on the side. Let me help you take the most of your retreat. But I'm excited for Andy and his wonderful team to show you the new spreadsheets I have for you. Because they're easier for you to look at than ever before. We're using a new heat map model where if things are trending up, there's shades of green, so you can see all the questions that are growing a little bit analyzed, and then shades of red for regressions. So you'll see your data and each event, and then it'll more articulate than a point about this, so you can do your own data retreats and more things you know.
I think it's been very helpful for us to use this information to formulate goals that are needed. I think it's been good for the administration.
I can't speak for them all. I know that data doesn't happen by not grow through that. Some days it has to be intentional of how you build it well.
Right. So, this is a reflection of our assistant superintendents, HR, maybe not finance. But no, I'm thinking. Actually, you got the budget. You got the budget.
Hey, practices being fair.
Yeah. No, the whole team really worked. It was one of our main goals was academic focus and improving classroom experience. And I think, the numbers show that we did not work.
And actually, that's what inspired those new spreadsheets. Is so many teachers behavior questions. They said, "Can you help us understand which building it is, or which buildings it is that is dragging it down?" So we just want to make it easier for you to, and you just go across see, okay, these are the buildings that need some help. It's really, really, really helpful to know where. Can I just chase them all improvements in my neighborhoods that are just all along the side?
Sure. I know our assistant superintendents will laser focus on those things.
My great question though. Again, I think the more you just use the data, get it back out to people, so that I would leave with the kids, because that's unprecedented for every measure to get as the kids to be the same or better than what last year.
Thank you to the administrators and our staff.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Peter.
Appreciate it. Again, just a quick way to let Andy or any of the team know if there's anything I can do for you. I have one open. All right. And thanks again. Thanks in advance for taking my workspace up there so I can sit down and just.
So while Andy gets set up, what we're gonna do is, Andy just do it over quickly, everyone should receive the while the whole agenda to retreat. So Andy just do present, and if we're missing the mark or hitting the mark, board members should let us know. We make adjustments. Understanding it's only a day, so there's things that we thought we got to discuss, we had to cut out for time's sake, because last year we didn't get to. Go ahead. The first thing I want to point out is we have a little bit of a new internal meeting agenda template. So this may be different than you've seen in the past. So if you got a little confused in the last update when I shared this, that's okay. So you'll see on the left side over here that we have different tabs. As we add retreats to this, you'll see like next year's retreat on this. So internally, we use this template. It keeps us really organized on our meetings. And those we now go back and say, what did you talk about on each side using the back? So just so you know, that's why this we kind of all right, so here's what we're proposing. We've been through some of these discussions. You've got really work here to say what are the most important and important topic to ask here. We have a fun day. Yes, kind of retreat, and we know that it's hard to find it. And like everybody, so it's a lot back here. To the top, we will hold this episode of Fire Hall in the center. So we were there last year for one of the days of our retreat. So most of us have been there before, so you know what it is. We'll start at 7:45 with breakfast. You know, it was working really hard to have us set up with that, using that. We'll talk about welcome and first the agenda at the end, and we'll dive right into the annual calendar board visit. It's supposed to be like, that we do the annual calendar to talk about what's happening each month. Maybe it's important that this is the time to go ahead and say, what does the next year look like for us? The topics are you hearing about other things that you want to add alert sessions, when do we add another data, when do we look and all these things that have to feel the course of the cycle. You will have that in there, so you can stack each one there. But obviously, the board didn't say, yeah, you want to move this to that, oh, Jesus, feel that. Go in, like, go get it. Then we jump into these different sessions. It's very similar to the last year. The first session, you'll be to talk about when we go about this student sessions data. How will this data impact their goals, strategic plans, super plan goals, all the way right into so we want to talk with looking at that selling those you learned about this data. So if you don't have this question today, that's just fine. Okay, we'll break, and we'll jump right into that discussion. We have a little appreciation of operational data. Uh, You'll see here medium charge from long term. As we set some priorities based on right now, what's coming up. That's good direction. You already have it out. So you get that, but it's set part of the obviously, we'll have some much in there. We got use it. So, that's good. See what schools do. Session 3 is running. If you remember last year, we changed the timeline of track to have that conversation. Try to align priorities with the board. With the budget that going back to that timeline. What are the priorities? Where should we be at a thinking about the timing back to goals. And then we move right into session. In the next session, we'll be referencing that plan. This would be like schedule what else with it. Some information related to email there. Consider talking about that. Board member administration will go over that application plan. That date and finally, there's some miscellaneous factors we talked about. Time. Student emotions are how you get that. It's in you black. Stats like that. You are. You have a leg. And you are. You so you what might feel like. And then, this has been a board update. We already have dates set next year's. Because it's still like so I was able that day. With that, you want the days to be earlier because it's nice to better align with the start. June would have been better if some reason it was -3. Questions, thoughts? Appreciate yourself, please. I'd like to hear a little board movement on good goals. So this is a top punch handwriting document. And then because we're supposed to evaluate who they're supposed to start setting goals. I have some idea. I mean, you didn't see the presentation for today, so I don't know if it has it. So I'm not looking for that. I'm looking for structure. Because in my mind, I think we have last year's goals, we evaluate where we're at goals. I'm just saying, you know, total goals for those. And try to keep the categories the same, continue to go. So maybe that one. So we, to make our time valuable, if we come without any structure to this meeting, I feel like we're gonna be all over the place. So but yet if we come with fleshed out goals, then that's not right. So I was thinking that we put together, evaluating and put together outliners or some options or some key points, areas that relate to last year, and then we can flush them all really on that. Of course, you'd have to add. What do you think would be the most interesting?
I think it makes most sense to a little bit of a try for those of us who respond and react to like start the conversation. It's just kind of categories of framework. Again, structured conversations that would be efficient and not just engaged in sorts. So I mean that process makes sense. Yeah, that process we started to kind of the last 2 years. Yeah, I mean some of that value brings that forward in an app discussion. So it makes sense. You need change right prior to progress. So that makes sense. And again, I think laddering to the key categories of an achievement, operation, and equals partnership, too, which again, you tried to line that last year, so taking that step further to make sure we're aligned to the bigger.
What I'd like to do this year too is when you do those, Andy rolled out something I think was very successful. In all of his meetings, he kind of goes back to what, right, that we set to make sure the flow the same. You know, when we set those goals, maybe try do that next year too, when we're set, maybe for everybody, make sure you're staying in alignment with what we want to do.
I think we should get that going then pretty quick so that they can respond to that. Some ideas were brought forward after people got to sit on it and think about it, which is totally fine. I like it. So we should probably get something together.
I think, maybe from the retreat, we had a review of the goals that we had last year, and so some goals may have stalled a little bit on the board side, but then understand why and what the rationale was. Help develop that set of goals for the following year. They should carry over or just be eliminated. If a goal isn't expandable, it's expendable.
Well, before, if you remember, we didn't set board goals at the same time as superintendent goals. We're doing that together. Well,
Yes.
Yeah, we'll help a lot.
I think the idea was we would see the goals, progress we made on, and then do we want to tweak, are we continuing with that goal, tweaking it, or do we want to be able to what it looks like? So, from what I'm hearing from everybody, we need to get that out in that manner. And you guys can provide feedback under each goal, what you think for ideas. The whole board can see it, kind of think about it, and then have a granular conversation after retreat. And then probably our August follow-up session is when we get finalized on and then break through visits being reasonable timeline. Okay. We're working on it. No one gonna get out. No.
if you get time to think about it, I haven't had enough feedback soon as I told you, but if there's something I'm missing, anything you really need to talk about that. There's a lot there already. We might not finish the conversations on everything. We're going to try and keep the time every time. Like the board calls, I don't imagine we'll have it finished, but we'll have a good idea where you're going to get done shortly after.
Well, we're gonna do a group dinner that night, or I'll tell the kids.
I mean,
We can make that call there. I think one month, Andy, if you want to spoil another kind of budget raise, I think that's going to be an important one. I mean, obviously all the decisions that we make drive budget for it. So if board members can be thinking about that, I think when cabinet said that's a really good conversation to have, right? So we might have 7, 10, 15 ideas, but can we walk out of there maybe with 5 during the superintendent cabinet of, these are 5 things we really want you to dive into, and then when we start the conversations in October about budget, we want to see what are the impacts of it, what do they look like. So be thinking about what you have as a board member for those, and kind of be prepared to bring that forward. I think one of the goals that we're working on different goal concepts is providing this information ahead of time, having the granular conversation at the retreat, and then the follow up kind of in the end of August so we have clear direction. So some time in between to think about it and divulge all the information, but multiple touch points all. That's really what we're trying to be purposeful, do different. Awesome.
All right, we're good. Dates of importance around there as always. You can see there's a lot coming up. We're done. Thanks everybody for coming. Have a good night.